Talk Show. Recorded live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Communities Roundtable podcast. This is podcast number 618. My name is Eric Nilsson, and with me I have my regular co-host, which is Matt Longeth. Today is Wednesday, August 17th. Matt, how you doing today?
Eric, that makes 11 short days from the Sunday before the start for Explore. It's going to be here. It feels like we've been talking about it forever, but it's just around the corner. And hopefully you and I will finally be able to do a podcast on the show floor, actually in person for once. I think we're now up to almost 80 some episodes that you and I have done across the last 2 years. But before we get to all things Explore, talking about what we have for the Nooks, for the experts, my favorite questions are always to ask of you. How are you? How are things out on the West Coast, and what is the color of the bay?
I'm doing great. I think I'm running on about 3 hours sleep. I worked till 2 o'clock last night.
It's show season. It's definitely show season.
Everything is coming together. We'll talk about that, but I'm doing really good. I'm actually energized and exciting, and I saved full calves for this month, right? So I've been doing full calves every morning, right? So I'm amped up. I'm excited to be here, and it is odd weather in California. We had rain this morning, so we've just got some thunderstorms coming through. I'm not sure where they're coming from, but it's been a little bit humid. We've been having that easterly humid out here in California, and none of us know what to do. I come out of the shower, and 30 minutes later, I'm sweating again. I'm like, I don't get it. This is not how California works. It's like the rest of the world gets this, but I don't. So I'm excited. The color of the bay, it's just kind of cloudy and green today, right? We got some weather. It's not cold like California rain normally is. It's warm, hot, like tropical weather. So interesting times in Silicon Valley, as always. On the show today, I'm excited, Matt, because we have Adam Evaristo, I think it is, but he'll tell us how he says his last name, as traditionally on this show. But Adam runs the beta programs. He's run the beta programs for quite a while. He's an avid community guy. He has communities at VMware.com. He has a beta area there that he works with that. And he does a lot of other stuff too. So it's kind of cool to have him on the show. Matt, I don't know if you've ever worked with Adam or the beta programs, but I'm excited about the topic.
I have not worked with Adam personally, but I am very adept to all of the things that we have access to within the TAM community as far as the beta programs and whatnot. It's very essential to the part of the TAM service and the overall ecosystem that we have within the software development platform across a myriad of all of our business units. So Adam, welcome to the program, and I can't wait till we can dive in a little bit to hear about all the different offerings that you have and the beta program in general.
Happy to be here, guys. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we get to Adam, we'll do some news. I'll talk about what's actually happening with Explore, of course, right? So the good news, Matt, is the vExpert Nooks that we've been talking about. They made it through customs. We paid the tariffs for the machines, and I gotta say, I've been looking online at the prices that they're selling them. Things are given away, and they're like $275 for things that we went to Alibaba, went directly to the manufacturer, went off Alibaba, didn't even use them, and bought directly. I took a risk because I cut PO dollars to the vendor. We just paid them, like
cut out the middleman.
Yeah, we cut out everybody, and we risk paying like $50K to this vendor that we really don't know. They could have easily just went, thanks for the $50K, see you later. But in the end, we got these things at like $100 a unit, right? Where they're selling for $280, $300 a unit on the sites here in the US. So kind of excited to get the deal and be giving these away, and they all get landed today. So I'm happy about that. They should be showing up, and we're going to take them over to VMware shipping and have them shipped directly to Moscone if we're lucky. So that's good. And thank you to NetApp who gave us some money to cover the costs. So good for them. And we got stickers made in Sticker Mule for them on the boxes. So calling out their booth, everybody can go, engage with them as well. And
so, Eric, what's that process going to look like? We for our listeners that are out there, we've asked that they pre-registered on the vExpert portal so that we know that they are coming to the event. But they're attending Explore. They show up. Where are these going to be given away? Who do they need to speak through? what does that process look like to receive your Nook if you're going to be attending Explore this year?
So I think we did pre-reg for the Nooks for vExperts. You had to go online to the vExpert app, sign up to say you were going to be there, so we knew how many to order. So we did order them, and then on the second floor of Moscone West is where the community's booth is with the community sessions. The reason we're over there is because we do have 2 session theaters, V Brown Bag and Code, which are in Schedule Builder, and all the session rooms are over in West on the 2nd and 3rd floor, and so they're basically putting us so that you can easily move from our sessions to the other sessions that you might have on your schedule. So that's where the booth is. And then you come to the booth lobby front of our booth. Corey will be there with Jenny Gonzalez and others. And you just, if you're on the list, you can pick up your Nook there, say hello to everybody, give high fives, and visit our sticker wall and if you have stickers of your own blog brand or whatever, you can bring them, share them with everybody in our sticker wall. Blogger tables are going to be there. Alistair is going to be there, and others. So should be a fun place. Come hang out at the VMware Communities booth, as many of you guys have for so many years. We're going to be back, and come pick it up. And then they're the size of a shoebox, so you should be aware that it's not something that's going to easily just fit in your backpack. It's kind of a box, because the Nooks have a mounting plate that you can mount on the wall, right? It has a power supply, keyboard, not keyboard, power supply, and miscellaneous other things. So the box, even though the Nook is, the size of 4-inch square, the shoebox is kind of big. You're going to have to pick them up. And we've got storage on site in the booth that we'll be giving all of them away.
Sounds great.
Yeah, sounds good.
Second floor of Moscone West over at the Communities booth. So pick up your Nook. And
then if you want to come by and do the home lab, we are going to be opening up, doubling the number of sessions for the Code 2769 US session. That is the Intel Nook look inside. So we got them taken apart. We got like 30 set up that you can come see how they work. And then we have a smart sensor lab that will attach sensors to the Nooks Intel x86. And we got C code that will take you through to how to, program your sensors. So if you walk up to your desk, and you have a motion sensor, it'll tell you, it sees you. It can then power on your desk for you. There's a 110 volt relay sensor that you can wire things in. So kind of a fun project to teach you how to code. We're using Visual Studio to edit the C code. Should be a fun lab, and also just get you exposed to the Nook. And then Bill Roth is going to explain how to run Tanzu on that x86 Nook as well. So should be a great lab. We're going to double the number of seats that we have scheduled for that session, because they are consumed by Watch and Schedule Builder this week. We'll open those up, and if you have friends that want to bring friends along, it should be fun. So we got that, and then of course we got all the community sessions. Alistair's going to be there from V Brown Bag. Those are all scheduled. The Code Talks are scheduled, and then of course we have the VMUG. I do a shout out to the VMUG party, which I think is Monday night at the ping pong place. So go to vmug.com. Yep, and register for that. Just have to sign up to be a VMUG member. It's free, and then sign up to come to the party. I know that we got some executives that are going to do drive-bys between Raghu and Kit and Sumit. I think they're going to have some executive sponsorship that's going to be there Monday night. Then, of course, Wednesday night is the party over at the basketball stadium. So I think we've leased the Golden State Warriors basketball stadium, and we're going to have the party in the stadium. So I don't know if they're going to be able. I don't know if we're going to be on the
Have
floor.
they dropped who the artist is as of yet? I know that's usually one of the last things to come out.
I think they spent their money on the stadium and doing fun things in the stadium, like, shooting contest or whatever. I don't quote me on this. I don't really know what they're doing inside, but I think they spent their money on the stadium and things to do in the stadium. And then I think they've just got, like how they do in Europe, I think they got a handful of no-name bands, right? Or quasi no-name bands, like cover bands. So I think they're going to have music, but I don't think they went with any big name entertainment. They took the money to get the stadium, activities in the stadium, food in the stadium, and then the cover bands are just kind of like cover bands. So we got some music.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Background.
Yeah, so I think that's what they did there, which should be fun. I love that when we did it at the Pac Bell ballpark that time, where we all got to be out on the ballpark field and had fun slides and party and food. I'm looking forward to something similar. I don't know. I haven't seen the layout of everything, but I would say I think there's something like that. And at the time they did the bands the same way, except at the back ball, they actually got Magic Dragons, right? Which was kind of fun because they actually had a big name in there, but they weren't a big name at the time. They were a medium name. So anyway, that's the deal. So again, the Wednesday night party, we do have the Monday night VMUG party. We're doing the Nook giveaways. Everybody's going to be there. And I know the numbers are going to be over 10,000, right? That's my prediction, given that I know where we're at right now, which we've crossed over 8,000 and we've still got 2 more weeks left and we're running at over 1,000 a week now. My guess is we're going to have a good turnout at the US, and my guess is that we'll all probably meet that in Europe as well. So I think it's going to be a lot of people coming out. COVID is dying down here in the US, so I'm kind of excited about the fact that people aren't afraid to come do things. So that's the news. That's what I know. Anything else before we get to Adam?
Nothing from my end. Let's progress along to the beta programs.
All right. Well, Adam, how do you say your last name? And welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Eric. Yeah, so it was very, very close, actually. Evaristo.
Evaristo. All right.
Evaristo is usually how I introduce myself.
It pronounces the way it's it.
Yeah, there you go.
Just nice. So, Adam, me and you have worked on communities and beta programs for quite a long time. On the podcast, because we're a community podcast, it's good to get our listeners to know who you are. Why don't you give us a little bit about how long have you been working in the industry? How did you get where you are today? Give us the 3 or 4 minute elevator pitch of how you got where you are today.
Yeah. I think just being super lucky and knowing the right people So yeah, a little bit of background. I've been at VMware for a little bit over 3 years now. I think almost 3.5. Responsible for customer programs. Focused customer programs within product management. I'm currently in the cloud infrastructure business group. So the beta programs we look after focus on Vsphere and VMware Cloud Foundation mostly. And prior to this, and so there's a number of different programs, and we can talk about that later. But prior to coming to VMware, I also did very similar work at Google for Google Cloud, also running customer programs through communities. And we use a different community platform than we use today at VMware. And then prior to that, I actually ran support teams working in technical support and running enterprise support in the Americas for a couple of products for Cisco, as well as Adobe, responsible for Creative Cloud Enterprise at one point. I love communities. I've seen the power of what communities can do from very many different use cases. So I'm excited and looking forward to speaking to you both about it.
Yeah. Nice. I got to say that a lot of people that we talk to in communities, about a third of them come through customer support, right? Like, and a third of them come through field activities and that. And so, and your time at Cisco, that makes sense. So, are you in the Bay Area? Is that sounds very Bay Area-ish? But
yes. Born and raised in the Bay Area, and matter of fact. Silicon Valley, Bay Area native is what I like to tell people that I'm proud about. But yeah, absolutely. And also I started in tech support, like you mentioned. And I think it just makes sense. I think for me, the other thing I didn't mention is that through my 20 or so years experience in this industry, the part that's always held true is the customer engagement piece of it. And in the past, like, starting off in support, back then, when I was running support teams, it was primarily phone and email. We didn't have communities, and now, as we look at customer experience and customer support and how it's delivered, we look at various channels, and communities is definitely one fantastic way of getting engaged and talking to customers and partners as well.
Yeah. My wife, I came as an IT administrator, right? Like I started with SCO Unix. I've told people this story many times on the show. But in the end, my wife that I met, she was administrator, but she got into support. And so I still stayed in administration, right? Because I just love keyboards and configuring hardware and doing, I don't know, I like administration tasks. I think it's fun to make things work. But she did the support stuff and started working with customers. And then I got into community because I like stealing software and sharing it, right? Like, so
Right.
like not really stealing, but it is nowadays. And 25 years later, I would just call it stealing. But back then it was more like we were super geeking out and cracking software and sharing it. And the idea of one upload to 10 downloads and sharing, and you did a lot of other things besides just sharing. You supported the software, you engaged with people. And I came up into the community space of sharing stuff and helping people understand how to be an administrator. But my wife did support, and they both kind of converged because in the end, it is the same role. It is supporting, people that are using and trying to solve problems. So it's a very common scenario that we all live in, right? Especially, and then there's some people that end up in engineering and then come down into community. Yeah, that's fewer, but it is too. So Matt, I'll let you take us into to the next phase of this with Adam, which is like, why don't you ask him about beta programs in general?
Yeah, Adam, let's say that a customer didn't prior know that beta was out there. How is, as far as getting introduced to all of the beta ecosystem, are they best to interface, right? Is there different sites? Is there a single portal for all of the other BUs as far as what's out there? What are you in charge of? What can you speak to? How is that customer best introduced to our beta programs?
That fantastic question, Matt, and I appreciate you for asking that. We do, I don't know if we can put that up, Eric, but we do have a VMware beta community site where people can go to and they can register, become a member, and learn more information. I think that's probably the best way, one of the best ways to find out. The other ways I've learned about how across different teams at VMware have communicated or socialized or promoted the various betas that are running is either through marketing channels or through other communities, other forums. But since we do have our VMware communities platform, and we do have a betas channel there, that is a good place to go to find out about VMware betas.
And for those that are just listening along, Adam, do you happen to know the URL for that, or an approximate URL of where they might be able to?
I have it here, and so I'll just put it in chat over on the TalkShoe, but it is communities.vmware.com/T5/betas, and that should get you there.
Okay.
You get that T5, right, Eric?
Yeah, T5/betas, and then CT-P//500-home if you really want to get to. But just go to communities.vmware.com, and up on the top menu item at communities.vmware.com is a link called betas. So you can't miss it. We're in the main nav, and that's the entryway to all the beta programs.
Yeah, and that's an easier way to navigate to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of cool. So one of the questions I had, Matt, which Adam, you can chime in on, is the value of betas. If you had to encapsulate what the value of betas are for people that you've seen through the beta programs, how would you say the best takeaway is for people that are engaging in betas?
Several, and it really depends on the person. I think, as a business for VMware, we benefit from getting the feedback from customers, from partners, from testers, from people all over that are non-VMware people for the first time experiencing and touching this pre-release software. And then on the flip side, those folks are able to communicate directly to VMware. These aren't other folks that are like managing our communities for us. We don't hire a third party to run our communities or our betas. It's all VMware. It's product managers, engineers, or the actual folks responsible for driving innovation, making changes, and feature enhancements, etc., directly into the product. So that I think is super valuable, and that's from a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from either from surveys or discussions. We love to see comments like that.
Yeah, I could imagine so. And take us through a typical beta program. I know we have private beta programs and public beta programs. And do you have to apply to be a beta engineer? Would they let me in? Better yet, would they let Matt in? Like, what's the process for onboarding people that you're going to engage with?
Yeah. Fantastic question. Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a couple of different betas, and I would say depending on the team and the product, some product teams, some engineering teams may run their betas differently, just depending on their use cases, the technicalities, the specifications, and all that involved. I can comment specifically. I'm happy to comment specifically on Vsphere and what we do, since I am responsible for the Vsphere continuous download beta program.
Sure.
And so for the Vsphere beta program, it's
Adam, I'm sorry. Yes. When we say continuous download,
yes.
So what's a little bit of background there? I mean, are we talking about nightly builds when we talk about continuous download, or what defines that particular criteria?
Great questions after great questions. Yeah, actually, we went through a sort of rebranding, a renaming of this. I want to say just before the Vsphere 7 release. And it was the notion that we're going to continue to post fresh new builds of Vsphere, so the VCSA, the ESX, and so that folks can continue to test and see what's coming, what's available, and like I said, continue to provide their feedback directly to to product and engineering teams. And we were at first, when we rolled this out for the first year, we were actually targeting a monthly refresh process, and actually the legwork, the engineering work involved to preparing a build to provide to the community. By the way, we didn't get into the numbers of the members, but we have about 6,000 to 7,000 community members in that space. Yeah, it's a pretty big community. And so just all the engineering work, all of the testing, all of that involved going into actually producing a build. The monthly cadence thing was a bit of a stretch, was a bit of a challenge. I think we had a lot of engineering leaders that weren't too happy with that push right off the bat. So far, we've sort of landed on a once per quarter, and the community seems to be happy with that. And internally, it seems to work well, logistically, operationally. And we're able to provide, good enough payload, introduce new features, new workflows, all of that. So far, we are kind of sticking to that cadence. We just recently published a release candidate for Vsphere, very, very recently. I want to say in the last 2 weeks. And so the VMware Vsphere beta is an official, private, confidential, private beta. It is through application only, and the online application is available online. People find it either through Googling it or through forums, but our marketing teams have also posted about this, blogged about it, and shared the sign-up forms for this. I'm also, Eric and I, we're happy to share, the sign-up form for this as well. Goes through, a bit of an extensive, not an extent, but it goes through a bit of a review process, just to ensure that we don't have any competitors, although in some respect we may have some folks that are partnering with us on some features, etc. But we go through a review process, then an enrollment process, and we've got the community, and now we've got about 7,000 people there. Not all of them are continuously active, but we've got a good sized number of folks that are continuing to test the betas and providing good feedback.
And what I would say is that not only do you vet people, but then I think you have to go through an NDA process as well and sign an NDA form.
So you're right.
Click through this program as well, right?
Yes. So our standard VMware master software beta test agreement is required. So that, in addition to the standard EULAs, the end user license agreements that are acknowledged every time you download a build.
It is interesting, Matt. I've seen this where these programs, when they get big, when you say 7,000 or even 4,000 or even 2,000, I remember in the early days of VMworld where we had 250 sessions that we had to go update the data on the sessions. anything where it takes more than 100 times to go enter people is an immense amount of effort to
Well, just do some simple numbers here, right? So let's say 7,000 active within that community, or 7,000 signed up members. Even if you only have 10% of that greater community, right? That's 700 like fully active partners, customers,
sending
that are out there,
yeah,
that are actively downloading the software, deploying it out there, and then providing feedback. That's 700 points of potential conflicts, feedbacks for PMs, things that now are going to set potential directions of that next release, or potentially a bug that's out there. I mean, that's a lot to manage and collect, even at a smaller scale with just a little bit of the community. And I'm sure that Adam will correct me in saying that it's much more active than that, which I would hope that it would be. But yes, it's an important part of, as I had mentioned before, the overall software build, validation, and test process that we have for both core Vsphere and then the other BUs and the other beta programs that we have out there. But then the back-end management of all that, to speak to Adam and his teams that are out there, there's a tremendous amount that goes into this, to qualifying those responses and then making sure that it gets fed back to the right PMs and line managers to incorporate the feedback, so that it's not just signal noise that's in there within the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, I know you've got somewhere else to go, so thanks a lot for being here for the first half of the show, and I will carry on with Adam, because I'm going to talk to about what I ate this morning, right? Because I think we'll get into like the
next
generation beta.
Thank you all. We'll catch you next week.
Yep. So Adam, excited. We've talked a little bit about betas. We've covered why customers into 7,000. I mean, I know that if you just get 2% wrong, you're dealing with like 140 people that are complaining at you, because even if you only get 2% wrong, when you're talking 7,000, it gets to be a pretty big number, right? And so a lot of work goes into that. So thanks.
Yeah.
And I know that you are running a vSphere beta right now that has been going on, right?
Yeah.
And I've been told that we're not allowed to talk about the version number, right? Because
that's right. So it's a mystery.
I talked about what I ate this morning for breakfast, because I think that's going to be a lot of fun at VMworld coming up, because you guys are working on a release. This is going to be a massive release that's going to be out there that we're not allowed to talk about yet, but a lot of work goes into this. How long have you been running this continuous beta program for this particular release?
Yeah, so we just posted, I think, I want to say July 1st, actually. July 1st, we posted the first build with brand new features, enhancements, a lot on lifecycle management. I know a lot of our community will be very excited to see that and test that if they haven't yet. But we also just posted, like I mentioned, even more recently, I want to say, I think it was maybe about a week or 2 weeks ago, a release candidate build, higher quality, higher performance. Again, super excited. We've gotten really good feedback so far from the community. Now, I wish we were getting more, feedback from the community, of course, but I think, folks seem to, test it, play with the features, and not everyone, responds back with what they like and what they dislike. So I think it's important to ask very pointed questions to get to understand what, you're looking to find out. And, we do that through surveys, and that seems to be pretty helpful.
When you're part of this program, I've never honestly been in a beta program, right? Because it's not my job. But how do you file bugs, and do you get visibility into the bug tool when you're part of this?
Yeah, so depending on the product, on the feature itself, I can comment specifically on Vsphere. So we do have alignment with GSS, with our support team, to provide us with support, which is nice. Not every product or product team has this sort of alignment or partnership with support where they could depend on that resource to support this. But Vsphere is like kind of the core to VMware, and there's a ton of customers, ton of people that are using Vsphere, and so it's helpful that we do have that. But not every product team or not every beta has that. Some of the other betas that we've run are primarily supported either through the engineering team, primarily, and then also through like technical marketing, the PMs directly. But
let me summarize here. If you're in the big program like Vsphere, you can file support ticket. They'll file a bug. They'll handle it for you, and they'll work with you to solve whatever issue you're having. And if you're not in one of the tier ones, you're in a tier 2 or tier 3, we still have the community area. So you get invited to community area. You can post things in the forums. You can have discussions about it. And I assume that the engineering team are in on those forums, communicating with you about what potential bugs you might have found or not found. And then they'll file something if they want to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we love, right? I mean, not that we love bugs, but we love the feedback. We want to be able to, lean on the community and have them to be able to report any defects or anything that we can, potentially fix right away.
Do people actually run this stuff in production, even though you've told them not to? Like, what's the probability that some of these people are actually putting heavier workloads on the pre-releases?
Yeah, that's a good question. From my experience, a majority of them are run pre-production, just because it is pre-release, it's beta software. It's not really supported to the extent of what a production, GA quality release would. But I do know that some of the individual testers do test it for other reasons, but for the most part, it tends to be pre-production.
Right.
We also do have a hosted lab. And I'm going to hate myself for bringing this up now because it's not available for Vsphere particularly, but we tend to always run a hosted lab in conjunction with our download beta program as well. So if anyone hasn't tried that or looked to try that, it should be available very soon.
Oh, nice. That's a nice thing.
Folks don't have to use their own labs or install anything. They can just test the features.
Nice. So beta programs, we've talked about bug integration and how to do that. Training. Do you guys do any kind of, how do you learn what's new in a release, right? Like, are there release notes? How do I know what I should be testing when a new release like this comes out or candidate comes out?
Yeah, great question. I think in general, for the most part, for the majority of teams, they'll produce a workflow document for specific features that they want, the user to test. They'll want them to test something, and they come through a variety of different forms. Tends to be, instructions, step-by-step guides. And then in addition to release notes, and we also put out a document of all the new features that they can expect to see. It's not a, full inclusive list, but it is kind of the highlights.
Yeah, I know a few years back, we'll just go back to memory lane, that we did have some new features in Vsphere. I think it was 6 or something, that it was in beta. And then because it wasn't ready, it had too many bugs, they pulled it, and then didn't tell anybody they were pulling it. So everybody was excited about, and we're getting ready to deploy when the new release came out. The new release came out, and they're like, wait, what happened to the set number of features? So it's not a guarantee that this stuff's going to be in there. It's just kind of like a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
You really don't know.
Yeah, well, I think the difficulty. I think a lot of people, folks may not realize that VMware is a large company. It's got many teams, and many folks are kind of working in conjunction, and a lot of the things have to kind of come together, and it's
there is a head engineer, and there is a train, and there is a process, and there's politics that get involved, revenue potential and all kind of things that happen to make these decisions. Now it's a little bit different now that we're on such I feel like SaaS has turned us into a quicker turn time. Like it used to be, Vsphere releases were every 3 years, and then it cut down to like every 2 years and 2 months. And now I feel like it's down to like almost a year, right? Like, or maybe a year and a quarter, right? Like so that has made this less of a challenge because you don't have to push it. If you're not going to make this release, there'll be another quarter. We do releases now, so I think that's less of an issue.
Right, more frequent updates and releases. Yeah, absolutely.
Another question I have for you, which I've always wondered, like, do you guys actually look for particular beta programs that have particular hardware configs, right? Because I got to imagine that you're looking for some people that have vSAN arrays. You got some people that have X number of VMs running. How do you guys manage that?
So that's a really great question, because those usually come into us. Those come into us directly from the PMs in a very, like the way you described, a very unique, specific scenario. And then what we would traditionally do, I and my team would do, is we would go and recruit that specific customer that fits those specifications. So it's a little bit more challenging in the sense where, we don't have an application form. We're collecting signups and we're pulling interest and we're pulling people in and we're gathering interest. We're identifying the environment, the persona we need, the setup we need, and then we're trying to identify them. And we're working through various channels, say, for instance, account teams to help us through the communication, because they don't like when, we talk directly to their customer without, informing us. So it even adds a little bit even more difficulty sometimes. But those do happen. They don't happen as often and as regularly. But as an example, they're happening now with, I won't say, but for instance, Car Week is kicking off in Monterey. So project something, there was a specific one that has to do with specific hardware, right? So there's that's an example where we're identifying, and that's what I call that is more of a high touch beta. So the way that we for CIBG, for the area that I oversee, it's we have various flavors of betas. We have the download beta program, which we described. We also have high touch beta, which is a lot more specialized, unique, where we're going and identifying the customers and we're finding the customers. And then there's the hosted one, which we talked a little bit about earlier, where we're setting up the environment. The customer just has to go and test the features.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? That not all beta programs have the same objectives. Not all have ways they roll out. Some of them are invite only. Some of them are very small lists, right? It just depends on. But obviously, Vsphere, it has been big. We ran open betas for a long time now, and so it has been obviously very big. So it is kind of cool. And
you gave me an idea. I think for the VMware Beta Communities channel, that means that I think we should use that page to collect interest of these special, unique betas that we just talked about. So
right, and that leads me to another thing that I know me and you have been working on is the what they call ideation, right, or a list of features generation, right, and vote up, vote down, thumbs up, thumbs down. I know that's always been controversial because when you get lists of features, everybody gets excited and they start sharing, and it turns out the engineering teams have a list of features 10 years long, right? Like that are high priority for enterprise customers. And so sometimes community members feel a little disheartened that, you're engaging, you're giving us ideas, and they never see their ideas implemented. And the reality is, if you talk to the engineering teams, they're like, yeah, we got like super high priority things that we have to do, that if we announce that, hey, we've got these things that are like breaking enterprise thousands of VM, the fact that you want a menu button, somewhere over here versus over there is never going to make it up the list. And so it's kind of disheartening for people that share things. And so it's like, but then the ideation, so they call this thing ideation, and there is AHA now, which is a SaaS service ideation that I think program users use. And I know that we're working with you to build a widget plugin for the beta programs to allow ideation kind of to happen within the beta communities. What's your thoughts on ideation and the whole idea of list, and this idea that some people, have we made progress on this? How is this working for VMware these days?
Yeah, I think, so that's another one where I will admit, many PM teams, many product teams tend to kind of run things the way that it suits their needs, their businesses. So there isn't that much uniformity, I would say. There may be similarities. I will say, one thing you touched on earlier, as far as what I heard was the lack of incentivization and not addressing, some of the ideas that folks are submitting. I think that's super duper important. I think it's important to have a portal, have an area for customers to be able to express their feedback, to provide their comments. Without that, they're just going to feel lost, like they don't know where to go. So we need to provide that. But then in hindsight, at the same time, when we do release a feature or do something that's going to address whatever they've given us. I think it's important, and this is where I've seen other companies have done this, and maybe one of the ones that I've mentioned earlier on in my introduction is where we go and incentivize them. For instance, using gamification within communities. Right. So, for instance, awarding them with additional points, a badge, for instance. So they've got that sort of Medal of Honor. They've got that they can display. They've got some sort of incentivization that they're being heard, they're being identified, and their feedback is valued.
Yeah, I used to be on that bandwagon, the gamification bandwagon.
Yes.
Now I've spent more time running cloud software, in my spare time, and that I'm like, I don't want a gamification. All I want is a button that says make this stuff work or make it go away, because I'm not in it for the game. I'm in it to make stuff work and go home. So it is interesting that we have that, but it is one of these things that we do. I would say that just having the history of this, Raghu used to come to me running communities, the online forums, and he would say, give me a report on how many conversations we had over this last month on the HTML5 client, right? Like, and he personally would go look at that, and he wanted the numbers because he would put that in front of eStaff, right? Going like, hey, this is what we got with the HTML5 integration of HTML5 clients. And I also, he reached out back in the day when we did core licensing, where we would socket licensing versus core licensing versus just general server licensing. And we had made changes when Pat Gelsinger took over. We announced the licensing changes. And let me tell you that he wanted numbers on community threads, right? So those conversations, even though they might not seem like they're having direct impact, like everybody's complaining about the HTML5 client or blah, 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 it is getting up to executives. VMware ecosystem inside of VMware is aware, right? And some of us read it, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's important, especially for but executives to, top down to engineer, administrative level. It's always interesting to see, or hear about the conversations that people are having about your product. And if people are having that product like on your telephone line, wouldn't you want to listen in and say, hey, what are they hearing? I want to hear, like, what are they talking about? So that's how I see communities. Like, all these discussions are happening. It's a way for you to sort of, have that all in one shot and review and see everything. And then, you could report it out to, in this case, the CEO or whomever else is asking for it.
Yeah. At the time, he wasn't actually the CEO. He was head of product strategy, but still, nonetheless, it went up to the CEO. They would have conversations about it, and it is. Oh yeah, it is good that it is there, right? And so the voice is heard, even though some of these lists of things, seem like it's, but every once in a while they'll come through. I know that I took over management of CTAB, which is Customer Technical Advisory Board.
Oh yeah, I've been writing CTABs for the last 3 or 4 years.
Right, and Raghu and Kit are producing a list of all the feedback that comes from CTAB, right? And that's going in front of eStaff, right? To say, okay, what are our key customers saying? Here's a list of things, and and how, and then Raghu wants what got fixed from the last meeting, right? He not only wants to hear, but he's coming back to engineering teams going, I want the CTAB people to come present, and then I want the engineers to come present how many of the things from last meeting that they actually get out into a release, or at least queued up for a release. So they are taking it serious, especially when you talk about SaaS releases. Right?
Oh yeah, and I can vouch for that, because in fact, just yesterday for our upcoming CTAB that's happening at VMware Explorer, in a couple of weeks, we had to submit a PowerPoint slide for each of the advisory boards, and I submitted 2 of them since I run, the HCI board as well as the VI Virtual Infrastructure and Operations board. We had to present a slide each of just what you said from the last CTAB, some of the pain points from and then some of the things we fixed and addressed since that last CTAB.
Yeah,
so absolutely correct.
Yeah, it goes out to the CTAB members as well, and it's also Raghu is on it and wants to get things fixed. So I think in the light of that, we do pay attention, and ideation is good, and we are listening, and we are, because of SaaS turnarounds and releases and beta programs happening, we're actually, pretty responsive these days, like way more responsive than we've ever been. So it's interesting transition, right? So we're coming up into the last part of our time together, Adam. So one of the things that I like to ask guests is like, so what do you got going on for the rest of the year? What excites you that's happening either in the beta programs or other kind of stuff that you're working on?
So for work, so in addition to the customer programs that I've been running for the last 3.5 years that I mentioned, since July, I've also been named the Vsphere release PM. So I really don't sleep now since that has happened. So I'm looking forward to the Vsphere release. I'm looking forward to sleeping again. That would be nice. But in the near term, there is an event in Monterey coming up on Friday that I'm looking forward to going to. It's a Porsche. It's a Works reunion event. So it'll be like all Porsches. I'm a Porsche enthusiast, excuse me, for any Porsche fans out there. So I'm looking forward to that this Friday.
Yeah, Do you have said car? Or do you?
Yeah, I did just get my first 911 in February, so I'm in love with it. It's kind of been my daily driver. I just can't stop driving it.
Yeah, you're having fun with it. It is one of those things that I kind of go like, oh, I should just go get a Porsche or some kind of muscle, nice European fast race car, right? I've looked at McLarens to see like how much would you actually. I don't have a garage enough space for it, but it's like there is a bit of that, fun bucket list, and now I kind of get it because like I'm in my late 50s, just turned 60, and it's like but then I'll just be one of those older guys in a Corvette where you see them and they're driving around.
You'll be an older guy in a Porsche.
Yeah, right, exactly, but. I think what it is this. Now that I am that age, I understand why people do it. It's not because they want to impress anybody, right? That's not it at all. They actually want to have fun with the vehicle they've fallen in love with, right?
Yes. And by the way, you look fantastic. I never would have guessed you were over 40 years old.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Cabriolet.
Yeah, there you go. Not a day. I feel like I'm Benjamin Button. I ran up to like 55, and then I just want to run back down again.
Actually, you do look younger compared to we met last year.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, all it is I'm trying to take off the COVID weight, right? So everybody I know that's been in COVID put on weight. All I'm going to try to do is try to take it off. All right. Well, so you've got some Porsche stuff. You're getting the major release out that we're not allowed to talk about, but that's coming out. Excited to see that. That's always fun, and can't wait to have guests on to talk about that. And so you're in the thick of it because I know that's a lot of work to get a release out the door, and we're not even allowed to talk about when it's going to come out or anything, but I can imagine you will hear about it when VMware Explore comes out. That I can imagine there will be some conversation about it, right? So
that's right. Yeah, that's when a lot of the announcements come out.
But in very typical fashion, I think when they announce stuff, they have like a quarter to get it out, right? So your heavy lifting would probably come to an end at some point at the end of the quarter, give or take. So that'll be fun. Now, this explains why I haven't heard much about you from you on the AHA stuff, because you're busy trying to get a Vsphere out the door. That makes total sense.
I know that seems to be the common complaint I hear from everyone. Like, oh, have you seen that email? Have you? Sorry, I'll get to it. I promise.
Yeah, cool. All right, so that, and then obviously, are you going to be at Explore? Do they let you even attend these things?
Yeah, I'll be working primarily supporting some of the customer and partner meetings. I'll be working like the CTAB events, CTEX events. And I think we usually do stuff for product feedback group. We didn't talk at all about that, but it's a different program that we run. It's called the product feedback group. We tend to have a meetup session during the San Francisco, the US VMworld or VMware Explore event. But anyway, the product feedback group, that's when, we discuss early concept ideas, prior to even making it to beta. But we actually have an open application forum for that. I don't know, maybe this might be a good time to plug that. I don't know if I can.
You can plug anything you want here. It's the
so can we add it later?
Yeah. Yeah, we can add it on. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well,
we'll have you on. That would be great. Always looking for guests, people to chat with. This has been fun to get to know you, Adam, because like I know you've been behind the scenes for years. You know, 3 years working here, but then at other places too, and you brought a lot of experience. So it's great to have you come on the show and exposure to the community ecosystem in general. So thanks a lot for doing all that good work. And I know we're at the last 5 minutes of the show, and we all have hard stops at 1 o'clock. So I will tell you that, you know, we do live stream this. We are on Apple, iTunes. If you're probably listening to this, you probably followed it on TalkShoe or on Apple. We most of our listeners are on Apple, but we also are on YouTube. So you can jump over if you want to see what Adam looks like. You go to youtube.com/VBarbecue, VBARBECUE. Go take a look at what Adam looks like, so you recognize him and say hello if you see him at VMworld. That's super good. Thanks for doing all the hard work. And because it's now in the past lunchtime here, Adam, we always end up with VBarbecue, and I know we have Tony Foster hanging out on the show. So Tony, I'll invite you to come in and say hello too. But Adam, VBarbecue. Do you get to? You're from Northern California. You must get some barbecue. Either tell us what you like to barbecue, or what your favorite barbecue place is in the Bay Area.
This is probably the hardest question you've asked me today so far. I would say though that my favorite barbecue is the non-messy, non-sloppy, saucy kind. Anything dry, I primarily like, you know, tri-tip or chicken breast. And none that I'd have to cook myself, have to grill myself. I barbecued for years, and I just got tired of getting the smoke
all night long. Yeah, right.
Otherwise, I could tell you I could eat barbecue probably for every meal, 2 or 3 times a day.
You say that, but I ended up in Texas on a barbecue tour where we went to like 4 different barbecue places over the course of 2 days, a long weekend. And I would say you do time out. You do tilt when you eat too much barbecue too quickly for too many days in a row. But that sounds good. So you're like a dry barbecue person.
Yes.
A rub. That's very Californian, by the way, right?
Is it?
Yeah, California, if you go down to like Santa Maria, down the coast where Hearst Castle is, a lot of cattle ranchers back there, they don't use any sauce. If you go to the barbecue places there, it's all just grilled, professionally grilled with a rub, right? No sauces. You let the smoke and the rub do the talking, and pretty good stuff. Yeah,
you're making me hungry. I haven't eaten yet.
Yeah, and then that with some garlic bread, and that's all. You got a nice piece of meat, some garlic bread with a rub, no sauce, nothing, and maybe sometimes they'll give you a little dipping sauce for your garlic bread only, but that's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
All right, Tony Foster, you got anything that you want to share barbecue? I know you've been here the whole time.
Do.
What do you got?
Yeah, we barbecued peaches this last weekend.
Oh, peaches.
Colorado peaches are coming into season. Actually, they've been in season for about 3 weeks now. And we just have the peaches, pop out the pit, sprinkle with a little bit of brown sugar and cinnamon, and pop them on the grill to it low and slow. And, they are amazing, especially when you pair it with some vanilla ice cream.
Vanilla ice cream, barbecue peaches. Gotta love that. I'm gonna do that. We have some peaches. We got a box of them the other day. I think I'm gonna do that. So cut them in half. Sprinkle. What'd you put on them? Cinnamon
and a little bit of brown sugar.
Okay, brown sugar, cinnamon. Half them. Barbecue them up, and then serve them warm with a scoop of ice cream. Love it. Vanilla. Awesome. Yep. All right. Well, we're at the top of the hour. Adam, hey, it's been great to have you on the show. We'll have you back. You can tell us about other things. Get you back. Have a great VMworld. Good luck with your release. Super excited about it. Best time of the year. Best time of the 3-year cycle when we do a major release like this for Vsphere. So excited about that. Fun to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. This is a lot of fun.
All right. Perfect. Great. We'll have you back. Thanks a lot to Graham and Tony Foster for being here always. Looking forward to next week. We're going to just do a know before you go. All the things that are going to be happening on the show. We'll cover everything. If you haven't gotten your Vsphere, your VMware Explorer tickets, go get them. And, we'll see you at Explore.